Good morning, Dan and Amy. We've been talking about Trump and Cruz all morning, particularly per the results in the primaries and the Hawaii caucus last night, with Trump winning 3 out of the 4. I got a text from 847. Dan, you're being negative. You're scaring people into voting for Trump. Is this a Lego movie? Are we supposed to sing "Everything is awesome"? We're just having a conversation about the prospect of Trump, the prospect that Cruz can derail Trump, particularly with Rubio trending towards zero, and
double goose eggs in Mississippi and Michigan, and word today that he might suspend his campaign even before the primary in Florida. That was his big thing. That's why he didn't travel to Michigan. That's why he's not here in Illinois today like other candidates are coming to this great state. I feel so ignored by the man that I was going to support, but now I'm back to square one and trying to pick a candidate.
Well, I don't know which would be better, if Rubio stayed in and lost Florida, or if he got out and gave Cruz a chance to make a late rally. Not sure, but I also don't think that even if John Kasich were to win Ohio, that doesn't stop the Trump momentum, and it doesn't get you any closer to a contested convention, which is looking more and more like the only possibility for someone other than Trump, and it's looking less and less like a possibility. Although Cruz did get a couple of additions yesterday. There is some rallying around the Cruz flag. Neil Bush, one of the Bush brothers, he joined the Cruz Finance Committee, which is interesting. And also,
Cruz won Idaho.
There was that.
Idaho.
But there was hope for perhaps an upset in
Hawaii.
An upset in Mississippi. He closed, but Trump still won going away. But the other big endorsement, I mean, you want a tough guy endorsement.
Oh, and who's the toughest guy you know?
Chuck Norris.
What?
Chuck Norris campaigning for Ted Cruz. There used to be a street named after Chuck Norris, but it was changed because no one crosses Chuck Norris and lives.
Oh, hey-oh. That's pretty good, Dan.
Your favorite Chuck Norris jokes.
Thank you.
We'll
I love
take
that.
those all morning. But now let's get some adult analysis on the race from Carl Cannon, the Washington bureau chief of RealClearPolitics.com. Carl, thanks for joining us.
Sure, Dan.
So your reaction to Trump continuing to build the momentum coming out of last night, going into mini Super Tuesday with winner-take-all states?
Well, I don't usually agree with Donald Trump, but he said something last night. He said the only one who had a good night was Donald Trump. And, we think of these athletes who quote themselves in the third person, but, Bob Dole used to do it. But in this case, Trump was right. He was the only one who had a good night. Ted Cruz is emerging as the alternative. That's the surprise. But, I'm with Amy. The biggest surprise of the year to me hasn't been Trump. It's been Marco Rubio's failure to launch. He raised money. He's attractive. He's young. He's not part of the GOP establishment, no matter what you hear. I'm in Florida today, and this guy's a freshman senator who took on the Florida Republican establishment to win, and had Tea Party support. This is 5 years ago we're talking about, and now he's finishing up the track. He got no delegates last night. He had these states. He didn't get any delegates in Hawaii, and I don't understand it, but. The person who's emerged as the alternative to Trump is Ted Cruz.
Well, what if Donald Trump wasn't in this election cycle? I mean, do you think Marco Rubio then would have succeeded?
That's an interesting thought experiment, Amy. But you know what I was wondering recently? And I actually talked to a Democrat about it. What if he had run as a Democrat? This guy was never really a Republican. And he gave money to Democrats till 2011. Then he switched after he got insulted at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He's not very ideological. The people attracted to him have this authoritarian impulse, which I don't mean to say they're fascist. I mean they want a person. They think somebody can make a wave of magic wand and just fix what's wrong with America. And both parties have people like that. So I know what you're saying because I've been wondering about that myself. But I've been wondering, what if he'd run as a Democrat? Would the Democratic Party be going through this convulsion instead of the Republican?
I don't know. The modern Democrat Party pretty far left. I guess Trump can morph into anything he wants. But in terms of the Trump support, I'm not sure that it's largely authoritarian or wand waving. I think they want someone in the fray. And I think the people that have tried to stay above the fray, kind of the way a traditional political candidate would do, not get down into fisticuffs, rhetorical and otherwise, I think that's just rejected as the same old blow-dried political hacks we've been told to support and who have either won and disappointed us or lost and disappointed us. And he's somebody that's in the fray, and he's in the fray for me.
Well, Dan, I agree with that. That's a pretty good analysis. But there's something else going on. People have been told for years by people like Hannity and Rush Limbaugh that to be disappointed in Republicans who can't fix Washington when they get there. Back in the days when the Democrats had the Senate, I'm talking about 2 years ago, and the White House, and the Republicans had one house. They had the House of Representatives. And these guys, they came, and we still have Obamacare. We elected them, and we still have taxes. We elected them, and our border's out of control. And there was this expectation created among tens of millions of people that the Republicans elected officials were failing the people who voted for them. But it's not a very sophisticated view of how government works. But Trump doesn't get into all that. Just this morning on Morning Joe, Bob Woodward is pressing him, okay, how will you get Mexico to pay for this wall you want to build? And Trump's answer is, and you've heard it before, both of you, is they'll build it. They'll pay for it, believe me, and it'll be a beautiful wall. Well, that's a level of rhetoric that is attractive to people because they think, well, the guy's he's built casinos, he's built hotels, he's done this, he'll do it. But he won't say how he's going to do it. And I think you have the same problem. People are going to be disappointed if you get, when you get a president who doesn't. Well, you can't make a wave
on his
magic
promises.
wand.
Yeah, it's all a joke. But if people, they're falling for it. Well, they want it. They're buying this rhetoric, and it's not going to happen.
Well, I'm not sure that it's intellectual. I think it's psychological, and we saw this in 2008 with President Obama. And here, there's an interesting piece in Wall Street Journal today by Jason Riley, the Democratic Fictions about the GOP and Trump. One of the things he says about the left take on Trump and the GOP, the GOP brought this Trump phenomenon on themselves. He writes, liberals who are eager to ascribe racial motivations to the Tea Party are ignoring activists' pre-Obama anger at George W. Bush's spending policies. So it's not just the last 4 or 5 years. A lot of these Trump supporters are old enough to remember George W. Bush, and they're old enough to remember Medicare Part D, and they're old enough to remember No Child Left Behind, and they're old enough to remember the redefinition of conservatism into big government spending. And that's when Republicans controlled everything. So it's a combination of the George W. Bush experience plus the Obama experience plus the majorities in the House and the Senate rolling over and doing things like the Ryan budget bill rather than at least putting in the fight, at least saying no rather than being complicit.
Well, Dan, I agree with that. Jason Riley's analysis is right. The Tea Party was initially aimed at George W. Bush. I covered its nascent and Congress. It wasn't a personal thing. It was aimed at high taxes. It does predate Obama, but and this idea. The other thing, this idea that the Tea Party was racist it's actually just a lie. The Tea Party actually expanded Republican diversity. Nikki Haley, Alan West, Rubio himself.
Yep.
Tim Scott. These were people, all of them people of color, and there were others too, all over the country, who challenged in every case a white Republican Party establishment in their state with Tea Party support and won. So that's always been a lie that the liberals say. But you can't really say that Trump hasn't used nativist language. Trump has said things none of those candidates I mentioned ever would say. Mexicans are rapists, and the stuff he said. You know it all. I don't need to regurgitate it. And he appeals to something. He appeals to this hope that we can take the country back and have smaller government. But he also appeals to people's fears, and he's doing it on purpose. And I think that's the ugly side of the Trump phenomenon, and we shouldn't pretend it doesn't exist.
Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief for Real Clear Politics, joining us on our Turnkey.pro answer line. Carl, a big surprise victory for Bernie Sanders, and what in the world went wrong with Hillary Clinton's campaign last night in Michigan?
Well, look, Hillary Clinton, I was watching last night the returns. I'm sure Dan and Amy, you guys were too, but people say, oh, what did Hillary stumble? Well, two things I'll say about that. The first is, among the people who, on the exit polls, who thought that honesty and integrity is an important trait in a president, Sanders beat her 4-1. But there's still a problem, even in even in the Democratic electorate, trusting the Clintons. And this is something I don't think That doesn't mean her campaign in Michigan did a bad job. That's just a fact of life with these people, and I think they've earned that suspicion over the course of the last 25 years. But the other thing going on is that their electorate is restive too. You know, it's a different thing. Yeah, Dan points out it's very liberal. Sanders is a socialist. This is a guy who, until 6 months ago, if you called him a Democrat, he'd correct you. I'm not a Democrat, he'd say. So he's come in there, and he wants socialized medicine, all the stuff he wants. He's running on. And there is a base of the Democratic Party, 50% plus, one in Michigan, who thinks that's right. That this economy is left behind working people, and they're the mirror image of the people voting for Trump, and they want somebody who will, you know, take radical change, not incremental change.
I think there's a commonality, but and maybe only one. There's a commonality psychologically between a lot of Trump supporters and a lot of Bernie supporters. Come from very different places, but the commonality is this: they want elites who have gotten away with things they shouldn't have gotten away with, who have been on the inside benefiting from the inside game at their expense. They want them punished. Yeah,
Dan. Look, you're right. When I was in New Hampshire, it seems like years ago. It was a few weeks ago. Who are you voting for? Trump or that other guy? What other guy? And I'd start going, Rubio, Case? No, that other guy. And finally I got out of Trump or Sanders. That's who they were trying to decide between. And again, it was an emotional vote. It wasn't. You didn't go down the list of public policy. Check, No Child Left Behind. Tax rate 35%. This wasn't that. It was who could they express their frustration to? Who would best show that Washington how irritated they were, Sanders or Trump? Interesting.
He is Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief for RealClearPolitics.com. Carl, thanks always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Dan.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.